This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
Do you think that Bryan Kohberger did indeed spy on his WSU colleague using those cameras, as was reported out by multiple networks?
Well, I had spoken to the roommate of that young woman who had the camera. What happened was she was from Korea, South Korea. She had just gotten into the program. She was having problems with English. She had shared an office, a graduate student office with Bryan Kohberger, and she developed a friendship with him. And she might have wanted to take it further, she told friends. But he was dismissive of her. He didn't like her inability to speak articulately, and he just kept her at a distance. But she did receive, she told him, and just one other friend, a watch from her sister in Korea, and it was a keepsake, a family heirloom. It was a watch or a ring. I'm not quite sure. My memory fades at this point. But she told him about it, and it was stolen. And she mentions it to Kohberger, and then 2 days later, I think it's replaced. One time she goes into her apartment, and she sees that everything, all her cosmetics have been taken off a stand above the commode, and they're now been rearranged on the toilet seat, really bizarrely. So she goes to Bryan for help. He helps her install a sort of a webcam on her computer. She was having problems getting onto the university internet system, the Wi-Fi. He does this. He then had access to her computer. Did he ever look? Again, only Kohberger knows for sure. That search history has not been made available.
We've been hearing some reporting about Bryan Kohberger carrying something in his hand that night. Bill Thompson talked about it during the plea hearing. What do you think Bryan Kohberger was carrying in his hand besides the K-bar knife that Dylan saw? She thought it was a vacuum cleaner type.
Right. Dylan
thing.
thought it was a vacuum cleaner. It could have been the K-bar knife. It could have been a plastic bag that he was getting ready. They pulled out of a pocket. They was getting ready to put his suit in that he was wearing, this sort of work suit, before he got to the car. Because there was so much blood in that house, so much blood that it was coming down the foundation out in red rivulets. It was dripping out, and yet he leaves no trail of blood. There's no trail of blood from the house back to where the car was parked above it on that sort of ridge. I mean, he did a masterful job of covering up everything except for that one mistake, the knife sheath with that little bit of DNA on the button snap.
So why do you think Bryan Kohberger returned to the crime scene at 9 a.m. that morning? What's your theory on that?
Well, again, that returning to the crime scene at 9 a.m. is just a couple of hours after he finished the phone call with his parents and just before he takes that selfie. So I think he was going back there. I think he was after speaking with his parents. He knew he had left the knife sheath behind. He was worried. He wanted to see what was happening outside the house. If the police were already there, if they had the knife sheath, he wanted to see if he was in any danger. He goes there and he sees everything's quiet, and he sort of that reinforces his confidence and allows him to go home and do that thumbs up selfie. That sort of mission accomplished. His bizarre monster's mission has been accomplished. I think he went there just to see if he had a real problem.
When Bryan Kohberger was, we know that he reordered another K-bar knife. Do you think he was planning to do away with more victims, in your opinion?
Again, this is speculative. I definitely believe that having, that thumbs up photo was Bryan Kohberger giving himself a thumbs up. I have successfully become a killer. I've entered the world of killers, and I think it wouldn't have been long before he needed that sort of gratification again. Whatever drove him to target Maddie, he would have found another Maddie, perhaps another young, pretty, exuberant, blonde woman to target.
Do you think that Ann Taylor was being somewhat manipulative during the hearings? And do you think this is maybe why Bill Thompson wanted to plead it out? I mean, she was accusing him constantly of not turning over discovery, um, claiming everything was super secret, even though there was a gag order that was put
No.
in place.
I mean,
By,
I think some of the things that Ann Taylor did should give her pause in retrospect. You mentioned discovery. She filed motion after motion that she did not have the discovery. Each time the judge dismissed them, he pointed out that she didn't hire other people to go through all the discovery evidence. And yet, at the plea deal hearing, one of the questions that Ann Taylor was asked under oath was, do you feel that you've received sufficient discovery? And you can see her pause for like a split second, a beat, and yet she agrees yes. So she was being disingenuous. And then you have to look at the motions she was filing towards the end. She tries to, okay, she wants to make an alternative perpetrators theory. She's want to save her client from the firing squad. I can understand that. And I can understand basing it upon that there was blood found on a stairwell handrail that was never identified and on a glove outside the house. Let's make a case. But she goes beyond that. She puts 4 young men's name into a legal document. She accuses them in writing, and it's redacted now. Who knows if it'll ever be made public? She impugns their character, their reputation. She calls them, in effect, murderers, quadruple murderers, and says, these are the men we should be looking at. And she had to know on some level that wasn't accurate. The judge said, this is not evidence. This is scurrilous. You can't introduce this into court. I think that was shameful.
and what did you think when the judge had to remind her she was an officer of the court during that hearing?
Yeah, it was, I mean, she was, flailing about. I think she was desperate. And then when they're asked, I think it's Ann Taylor who brings up the gag order. She wants it to stay in place. What is she trying to hide? The whole point of a gag order is so that you could have a fair trial. You didn't want to prejudice the jurors, but there's no trial. There's no jurors. Let's get everything out there. But Ann Taylor wants us to be locked up. Bill Thompson wants us to be locked up. And it seems, we'll know for sure on July 23rd at the sentencing, that Judge Hippler wants us to be locked up. I mean, he's going to ask, I would assume, Kohberger a couple of questions, several questions rather, and Kohberger can answer them tersely in the same sort of indolent yes that he offered at the plea deal, or Hippler can say, that's not sufficient, I want further answers, or I can reconsider this. But I think that's probably wishful thinking on my behalf. I don't think Hippler is going to show that sort of enthusiasm for getting to the bottom of things. I think all the powers that be in Idaho want this to disappear. This has been hell, and they want this hell to end, but it's never going to end for the parents. Kohberger has a life sentence. Each one of these parents has a life sentence.
I love the portion of your book where you talked about the childhood and you talked about the victims, Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana, and about their childhood. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, the subtitle of my book is a requiem for the Idaho student murders. And by requiem, I wanted this book to be a loving remembrance of them. These were young people who were cut down before they had a chance to live, to become who they were going to be. At one point, Xana, at her high school graduation, she's wearing her graduation cap, the mortarboard, and on the band around it, she's written, "For the lives I will change." And that's a real tragedy. She'll never get to change these lives. Kaylee and Maddie. Kaylee had just gotten to the point where she was going to move on with her life. She was going to graduate early. She was going to go backpacking around Europe for a bit, and she had a job lined up in Texas. She had this new car. She either would be with her boyfriend or without her boyfriend, but the whole world was ahead of her. All these kids, that was just it. It was so filled with promise, and promises that can never be fulfilled are so deeply, deeply tragic.
Yeah, I can't imagine how horrific this has been for the loved ones of these four beautiful young people. They just had the world by the tail, and it was stolen from them. What do you think was one of the? Why do you think Bryan Kohberger's parents were testifying for a grand jury related to Dana Smithers? Do you know anything about that?
I think that was just a local district attorney trying to see if there was any connection, trying to, how it seems logical that Kohberger would have been involved in something before, but there's no proof of it, no connection. It was just sort of a Hail Mary pass that was dropped.
If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out a lot. Give this a thumbs up and drop me a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I've been feeling weird, I can't seem to focus good enough. Nothing's really clear, sometimes it could be a little tough.